Hello, everyone. Diana Rankin here. Welcome to our Friday afternoon together. It's Friday afternoon where I am, not where all of you are. This is our 17th week of the new year of 2021. Not such a new year anymore, is it? It's for April the 25th to May 1st. May 1st. Gosh, how did that happen, right? I gotta tell you, we had snow this past week for a couple of different days. So we're really happy to see May coming because I think that's going to, as they say, April showers bring May flowers, but I don't know about the April snow. Well, hello, Wendy. Glad to see you this week. We're going to get right to our question that one of our viewers sent in for Phillip to answer. And it's kind of an important question. It's about nuclear war. So we're going to get to that. We will also, well, hello, Cynthia. Made it for the live. Yes, you did. Well, thank you, Wendy. My hair looks lovely, Wendy says, and I appreciate hearing that. I haven't had, with COVID, I haven't gotten out to get a cut, and it just keeps growing. And, I keep thinking for 75, I probably should cut it, but it's a lot more work when it's short, so I keep it long. So anyway, thank you. I appreciate that. We will get a message from this particular book. It's one of my books. Yes, it is available on Amazon. And for those of you who aren't familiar with it, we just open to any page, and each page is a different wisdom. So we'll get that at the end of our answer for our question about nuclear war. And we do have some questions in the queue that we'll be looking at over the next few weeks. But if you have a question, I do ask that you keep it general so the whole audience would have some interest in it, as opposed to a very specific question for you. Now, it can be about you, but just so, like we've had questions about Alzheimer's or about animals that are our pets, and all kinds of different questions that answer personal questions for us, but are actually also for the wider audience. If you do care to make a private have a private session with me, the information's below. Just actually go to my website and you can get the phone number, and just give me a call. Sometimes that's easier than sending out an email. But if you do send an email, include your phone number and I'll give you a call to get the session scheduled. So let's get going right away. Here, the question is nuclear war inevitable? And Phillip says, nothing is inevitable. Let me put it on the stand here to make it a little bit easier for me. Nothing is inevitable. All is energy. Everything is shifting. Energy shifts as humans create. Humans can create a world of love or a world of non-love. I want to say, be sure and stay tuned because the ending of it is kind of mysterious. So we'll get there. So often humans feel helpless in their part in creating the world. This is not helpful to individuals or the collective. Excuse me. Too often one feels decisions are made by those who run countries, the presidents and dictators and so forth. This certainly is how it appears. So the individual feels they have no power. This is not true. This is not true, he repeats a second time. Let us explain. Keeping in mind that everything is energy allows you to understand that every thought and emotion contribute to war or peace. Let us also say that individuals do not have the same experience, even when the situation is identical. The one who is looking at the world through the eyes of love is creating peace. Those who look through the world through the eyes of fear and anger are creating wars. Who will win depends on who creates the most energy. In your world today, there is much anger and fear. There is also the capacity for a nuclear war with the weapons at hand. There are already enough weapons to destroy life on Earth, even those who have created underground bunkers they call safe havens. Is this inevitable? No. Is it likely? The trajectory is there, on track, as we say. This said, we are also most hopeful that those who understand the nature of energy will take responsibility for their contribution to the collective whole. This means that each individual must deal with their individual lives in a responsible manner. They must be aware of their thoughts and actions and the importance of each emotion they experience. Is it possible for one to experience only love? Phillip says, of course, but in human form, this is most rare. I will tell you, I am very human, and I would love to live in love 24/7, but I feel anger, I feel fear, I feel sadness, I cry tears. The trick is to keep coming back to love. Phillip goes on to say, what is possible is for one to be aware of their experience. When fear or anger arises, recognize it, look at it, and walk through it to the other side where love awaits and peace is created. Humans seem to think it is easier to live in fear than to live in love, so they stay stuck in the fear, which creates grooves in the human brain that continues to return the mind to anger, sadness, a need for revenge, a need to blame the other for their unhappiness. How true that is. Taking responsibility for one's thoughts as well as one's actions often requires reprogramming the mind. Too often humans are reluctant to do so, which comes from a place of fear. All that's required is to replace fear-based emotions, thoughts, and actions with love. That's all that's required. Sure, right, Phillip? Easier said than done, right? But as he goes on to say, as one matures, this becomes easier to do. The first step is the desire to do so. The first step is the desire to do so. And that's when Phillip says the desire to do so, it is simply that. I desire to be a loving human. I desire to act in love. It isn't about beating up on ourselves. It isn't about begging. It's about stepping into that power that we are and saying, I desire to be of love. That's all. That's the first step. That's all we have to do to start. Then he goes on to say, once this is established, sincerely, the simplest of forms will be given to replace fear with love. All that is then required is to listen and act in the kind and loving ways asked of you. I'm going to stop for a minute. He has more to say, but I want to explain that a little bit more. All that's asked of us is start with that desire. I desire to live in love. And then it may be simply we smile at somebody who irritates us. It may be as we wear our mask out in public and those others who don't, instead of condemning them, we smile at them. Sometimes if I find myself really irritated, I say I can kind of stick my tongue out at others behind my mask, and then I start laughing. So I am shifting. I'm starting with some anger and some nastiness on my part, but that act of sticking my tongue out makes me laugh. And so then I can laugh and then I can send them love. They're just a little misguided, I think, or they haven't reached the point of caring for the rest of the world. And aren't we glad that we can? Isn't that exciting that we have the power to help everybody else in the world? That's pretty cool. So it may be as simple as just a simple emotion and we switch. I will tell you, it becomes more and more complicated and it does become more challenging. And then we get a rest period. We say, phew, oh, this is great. I'm loving this living in love. And then we get a whole new level of learning how to live in love. So it doesn't necessarily stop, but here we go. We can do this. Start with a desire. And then simply, the simplest of forms will be given to replace fear with love. All that is then required is to listen and act in the kind and loving ways ask of you. We do not promise to make this easy. Humans do not let go easily of old habits and thought patterns. It is necessary, however, to change the trajectory of nuclear war to the trajectory of peace. Listen carefully to this rest. Keep in mind that each human is creating their own reality, and that reality may not be the same as another's. Create the reality you want. That is the world you are creating. For one dimension, there may be a nuclear war. For another parallel dimension, there will be peace. I'm going to read all that again. It gets a little confusing, I think. It gets a little, what do you mean, a parallel world? But keep in mind that each human is creating their own reality, and that reality may not be the same as another's. Create the reality you want. That is the world you are creating. For one dimension, there may be a nuclear war. For another parallel dimension, there will be peace. I think Phillip spelling that out pretty clearly. What world are you creating? One of peace or one of war? Please create one of peace. I won't get into the different dimensions today because that's a whole nother question. But I think we kind of all have an idea of what that means, even if we haven't experienced it. I want to say, Christy, hi, and Dee, welcome. And from the spirit within me, from my heart to your heart. So thank you for being here with us, all of you. It's always good to see you. I enjoy that. Thank you. I don't know how you know when I'm coming on. I haven't figured that one out, but that's cool. Cindy, my tech person I turn to when I have a tech question, she'll have to tell me. Okay, here we go. We're going to just flip through and we're going to stop there. And I'm hearing left. And so if you heard left, your intuition and my intuition are in sync. And this is the general message for all of us. If you heard right, then that's a very specific message for you. And I have had people tell me, come back and say, the opposite page, like today would be right. That really was a message for me. So I like to read both pages. So here we go. Here's with left, without a receiver, there is no giver. So that is telling us if we live in a loving manner, we also know how to receive. You know, I do find with my clients, those who have trouble receiving have a bit more anger because they tend to have a responsibility and not recognize we're all in this together. And as a girl, I was taught, oh, you shouldn't have, but thank you. And I still struggle with receiving, and I have to remind myself, without a receiver, there is no giver. And I have to be as gracious as possible, even if it's not something I particularly wanted, but just to say thank you. And also learn what we need and ask for it, and then receive it graciously. If we can't receive from other human beings, how do we expect to receive from the universe? How do we expect for God to give it to us, or spirit, or love, or whatever word you put? I usually say spirit to kind of encompass all. But spirit works through humans. So receive graciously, my friends. If you heard right, here's your message. Others interact with you from the level in which they express life. If you live on a different level, will you not then interact from a different perspective? Ooh, that's an important one. I have to always remind myself of that. Others interact with you from the level in which they express life. If you live on a different level, will you not then interact from a different perspective? You know, every once in a while, I have a client that we're on totally different levels. And as a reader, my choice is not to get into a lot of the mundane. That's not who I am. My choice as a reader, my expertise is not to get in. I'm not a therapist, and so it's not to get into those issues that require therapy. My choice is to help you develop a greater life, which can be a better career. And how do you get that career? Which can be a better relationship, a more loving relationship. And how do you create that more loving relationship? Not to just hear you complain about things, or not just to get into somebody cheating on me. That's not what my expertise is. My expertise is to help you find your soul's mission, help you find your soul's partner, and work those relationships. Teach you about love, basically. So again, remember, others interact with you from the level in which they express life. If you live on a different level, will you not then interact from a different perspective? Several years ago, the Wall Street Journal, which is a relatively conservative newspaper and organization, and they were not the only ones who did this survey, but they did a survey on sensitivity. Who's sensitive? And they found that 17 to 20% of the population is not sensitive. That means, or is sensitive, excuse me. 17 to 20% is sensitive. That means 80+% is not sensitive. So those of us who are sensitive, we're the ones who have to create the love. And we have to remember, instead of sticking our tongues out at those who aren't wearing masks, we may have to bless them and remember their reality is different than our reality. We may have to look at those who politically are in a different arena than we're in and still love the person. We may have to look at those who have problems that perhaps we dealt with a long time ago or never had to deal with in this life, and just recognize their reality is different than our reality. Let our reality be one of creating love and creating peace in the world. If somebody's reality has to be to create nuclear war, let's not be a part of that. Let's create peace. And remember, without a receiver, there is no giver. So let's all receive with love and build that world that we truly want and we truly deserve. But we have to build it, as Phillip tells us, one breath, one step, one moment at a time. And we can do this because love is always stronger than fear. I love you for coming, Wendy and Cindy and Christy and Dee. Thank you so much for being with me today. And for those of you who are not with us live, but come on after and view the video. And we have, okay. This is another question coming up, and I'm not going to take time right now. I'm not quite understanding the question, so I will look at that later, but thank you. So love you all. Thank you for accepting that love. Have an absolutely wonderful week. Keep in mind, when the anger comes, when you want to stick your tongue out, bite it a little bit and just laugh. Until next week, my friends, I love you. We will be doing the monthly for May, the monthly predictions coming up this week. We'll get those monthly predictions out for you. So thank you for being with us. I love you and see you soon. Bye.